episode 17 of the Road Writers podcast. We're the podcast by writers for writers, sharing our experience from 5 very different backgrounds. Today we're discussing dream jobs for writers. But first, I have 4 talented people here with me today, so let's meet them now. For intros, we'll say our name, what we do, and answer the question, have you ever had what you thought would be a dream job, but it turned into a nightmare? Or you can just discuss any job that you really loved or really hated. So, Tessa, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Tessa. I'm the PVC specialist here. My dream job, that I thought was going to be my dream job, and something that I'm still very, passionate about that involves quite a bit of writing and stuff like that, is I worked for a PR firm in Arizona my senior year of college. And it was one of those PR firms that in Arizona is kind of a big deal. They run a lot of big events. They handle a lot of big accounts. We handle a lot of NFL players and things like that. So it was a lot of fun because you got to have a lot of close interaction with some of these people that you'd seen on TV, or you listen to their albums, or you know, things like that, which was kind of amazing. And what kind of turned it a little sour was there was this one woman at this job who, for whatever reason, actually, I'm pretty sure I know the reason, but that's a whole other thing, she just did not like me. She did not like the fact that I was young, and I was blonde, and I was everything that she no longer was. She was in her early 40s and had just recently gotten married and wanted to have kids, but had kind of lost her chance and was kind of going through this whole thing. But she was just kind of the worst, you know? I remember once one of my direct boss at the company, she was 8 months pregnant at the time. And I walked into our back office and had pulled something off the printer because I was back there anyway grabbing a water bottle. So I walk over to my boss's desk and I put it on her desk. And my boss says, thank you, just like, any normal average person would. And this other woman at the office turns around and looks at her and goes, thank you for what? For doing her job? Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah. In front of the whole bullpen. The owners of the company, all the other employees, and it was just crickets. Absolute crickets. And I was standing there just flabbergasted because she had always been a little short and kind of critical, extra critical of me, which crap happens. I don't know. She would send emails that were just unnecessarily aggressive, things like that. But she had never actually taken to the point where she had said something that kind of aggressive to me in front of everybody else at the office. And I remember, and nobody knew how to react. Nobody knew what to say. And the problem was she was that person that had been there long enough that you knew nothing was going to happen to her, no matter what she said or no matter what she did. And so when I went back to school my senior year, my last semester, they kind of decided, it was a mutual decision that, they needed somebody who could commit more hours than I was going to be able to with my school schedule. But they just, as I was leaving, they said, once you graduate, if you want to come back, there's always a spot for you here. We loved having you. And in that moment, I just knew that I could not handle working with her anymore. As much as I loved the company and I loved the job, it was just not worth going in and being berated like that every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And integrity just goes.
And so, and being, how old was I at the time? Being 21 at the time, nothing kills your confidence.
Yeah.
Trying to enter the working world than somebody just kind of shitting on your dreams every day.
Right.
And it's I'm 21, and while I have a lot of pride in what I do, at that point I was 21, I had a lot of pride in what I do. At 21, and it being my first kind of professional career-driven job, I was not expected to know everything. I was expected to put in 110% effort and push myself to do better. But to have this expectation to hold me to the same standard as somebody who'd been in the industry for 15 years was kind of ludicrous. And that was essentially how she tried to make it seem like I was bad at my job.
Damn. It's
and
pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was horrible. But, it was also a good learning experience because you're not going to love everybody you work with. But at that point, it was just, that was a little too much. because it's not even something where you can like kill them with kindness because you can find any excuse to just
I actually have a quick question on that. Do you find in your life that, or like in your experiences, and I guess it goes to all you guys, that is it more females that you feel have it off for you, or female boss or female superiors that more have given you a rough time versus male, or is it even down the board in your opinion?
I think it's...
Because I've heard a lot of girls say, or like it's always, like you mentioned, it might even be the jealousy issue in that case.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that depends. In the various jobs that I've worked throughout the years, I've definitely had issues with both female and male coworkers. And I think a lot of the times when it comes to male coworkers, for me, it's more of a difference of personality versus like them actually
an internal issue where they have a problem with you,
mean to me and like outward aggressive. And I don't think females have that same problem. I think, and especially in the case when that woman's been at the company for so many years and she kind of feels protected and she feels like nothing is going to happen, like
like very entitled, like she can get away with anything.
Exactly. And so I think and unfortunately too, with a lot of women, when jealousy becomes an issue, they can become very petty, and that's a little unprofessional in the workplace if it happens.
That's true.
So,
all right, damn, that's crazy. So which way is? All right, cool. All right, so I'm Nick. I'm a copywriter and SEO here, and I'm going to talk about a job that has the stereotype of being really brutal, but then I'm going to talk about how it was really fun a lot of times too, and that was being in the Navy for 7 years. So. First and foremost, boot camp sucks. Either way you slice it, you're going through 2.5 months of suck right there. And I had a rough time in that. Got pneumonia, all kinds of stuff. Wasn't fun, but everything was great after that. It really was. I got paid to go to school for the next 2 years after that. We're talking typically 6-hour days, including having to go to workouts and things like that. And then going to my first ship, I met him in Australia. And, went to a lot of cool countries and then settled down to where my new place I live, Japan, for 3 years. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do in the Navy. There's a saying, choose your rate, choose your fate, which means the job you choose or qualify for based on your test score really does determine your quality of life. It really does. In my case, I was an Aegis tech, so we would have probably 6 secret rooms that required passcode, and there's probably like 3 to 5 of us that knew the combinations. So we're extremely fortunate. Like if you need a place to chill by yourself, we had multiple options, and most people had 0 options. So it was an extremely awesome gig to have on the ship. And so anyway, on my last deployment, we were gone 8 months, but it was a Magellan cruise. So we went out one way, came back the other way, went all the oceans, all the way around the world. And we were the first ship to respond to the Haiti earthquake. But while you're at sea, while you're on this ship, this floating city with like 200 to 300 people, they have, contests. Like I myself hosted a Tekken tournament, a Soul Calibur 2 tournament, and that was fun. That attracted a few people. There's always people, having events to keep it interesting. There's karaoke nights, and then just in general every day there's a library. There's movie nights almost every day. There's flight deck movies, and there's a ship store because I drank probably 3 to 5 energy drinks on a daily basis, just staying up for watch and things like that. So a lot of people are addicted to those kind of things, caffeine, just because nobody is getting any sleep. So anyway, one cool thing we did is we stopped in Haifa, Israel for 3 weeks straight. So it was like normal work days. We were getting off at 3 or 4 every day, and we were going out into town so often there in Israel. You just really got to know the bars and restaurants and locals. We even went to some of the locals' homes in some cases. Some people started dating locals. We were there for so long, and it became like a second home almost. And it was cool because I did a tour and saw a lot of the religious stuff, the Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Jesus' old house, things like that. They're still standing there. And then also on that tour, we went to Spain, Italy, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Turkey, Hawaii, a lot of awesome places. So if you like to travel, the Navy might be for you. Plus, as far as going from 0 to moderately independent and successful, we got a $9,000 bonus just for signing in. And when I got out, I had close to $40,000 saved up. So it's a great way to go from nothing to independent within just like 6 years or so. And then one more thing on the actual deployment, I was able to turn one of those spaces I talked about in a array room. I knew hardly anyone goes in there unless we have maintenance. So I moved my cot in there, my PlayStation, set up beach chairs. And I had people up for movie nights.
What's it called, array room?
Array, because if you look at an Aegis cruiser, there's those things that look like stop signs, and those are the spy arrays, so the spy radar on an Aegis ship, because it sees for hundreds of miles. It's secret exactly, but hundreds of miles, and so it uses those giant arrays. And so each one of those is like a room. It's kind of like a tree house, and so I turned that into my luxury apartment on the ship, basically. And out of what I still think was probably there's a hint of jealousy for sure. My LPO kicked me out of for a few months just because I was living pretty good up there, and then. Anyway, yeah, so it's just an example of how even a job that has the stereotype of being really bad can be awesome. I mean, and once again, some I brought up before, the people I really feel like are the core thing that makes a job good, because there'll be times where, we'd be up there knowing we're going to stay up all night to take apart this radar and do maintenance, like, just already tired, whatever, but just knowing that, my friends, Ray, Orozco, Aaron's, Stowe, they were all up there, and I mean, we would just have a blast out there, even if we're up all night, even if it's no sleep, doing this work. And so that really just cemented that the people you're around really determines what kind of time you're going to have. That's something that I really has been confirmed for me time and time again, I feel like. So, yeah, that's my intro question.
Did you ever get seasick?
I was not susceptible to that, but there was literally people who every single time we went on deployment, they would get seasick. Like this dude Chandler, I remember, he was a super tall ET guy. Every time we went underway, he would just have all his stuff ready and be huddled in fetus position in the ET shop because he knew he would get seasick. And then we were in a tsunami off the coast of Australia where the ship was like rocking 20, 30 degrees, and the shoring that was strapped to the side was falling off. And all the time over the 1MC, the intercom, they would say, there would just be emergencies. They'd be announcing nonstop of people that are uncontrollably seasick, because people that are susceptible to it were just like bedridden at that point. Like they couldn't even go anywhere.
You need to get those little nausea patches.
I did one time when I went on a sailing trip.
Oh,
I
you
did
went
get a
on?
patch.
Yeah.
But when you get on land, you're kind of off. It's weird.
Yeah,
you're almost
absolutely.
sick on land because you're so used to sea.
Yeah, it feels like you're rocking when you're just walking forward on the pier because you've been at sea so long.
I am not a good sailor.
Yeah, it's not for everybody for sure,
No.
but I never once got seasick. No.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good. I recommend it to any 18-year-old that really doesn't have direction because, it leaves you with a work ethic that blows 90% of your peers away, and then you're better financially. You're better in a lot of ways, I feel like.
You get veterans benefits, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
for
housing and whatnot?
for instance, a GI Bill, which led to, when I was doing my freelance writing, I was also getting paid $2,100 a month just to go to college.
Oh.
That's part of the GI Bill, so that lasts for 3 years. So, that's a pretty decent incentive right there, too, to just do that. Because I already had college experience, so you can take it to the next level, get your MBA after that, whatever you need to do.
That's awesome. So. Sign me up.
Yeah, no shit, right? It was a pretty fun lifestyle. People don't know. And there is a lot of females in it, too. So.
Do you have to be 18, or can you be way
You can be up to 36. 36 is the cutoff unless you've been in before. So, yeah.
I wanted to join the military when I was younger, but I'm too small.
I was 23, actually, when I joined. And already I'd been to college, already had done a bunch of stuff, yeah. So.
You find that was helpful to you going through college already?
Yeah, I do think so, because just for having a certain amount of credits, you literally get bumped up in certain ways. Like I got the $9,000 bonus because of my college experience. And then also it actually, they implemented when I was in that college experience boost your evals too. Because every 6 months you get an eval from your whole chain of command, and it affects your advancement directly. It gives you points towards your tests. And then having college credits boosts your eval. So, yeah, it really does help a lot.
That's awesome. Okay, I am going to talk about a job that I had that I actually loved. I was originally going to say one I loved and then it went sour. This one I loved and never went sour. And It was waitressing. I was a waitress. Actually, I re-entered back into. I was a waitress through college and some of my college years, but I re-entered when I was in my early 30s, and I moved to Carmel, which is very much a service industry, hospitality zone, very wealthy. I lived in a home with I lived in a home. I was home. I lived in a home. But it was kind of an interesting setup that back then. Anyway, so I got this job initially as a hostess, but I moved into waitressing at one of the most popular restaurants on the peninsula. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it was the people. I loved my job because not only did I work with some of the coolest, most fun, gregarious people, but the people that came in during golf tournaments, during car shows. I mean, these people dropped tons of money and celebrities. Yeah. And that was super cool. So when I was a hostess, I was kind of with another woman, and we had to be hostesses together. No, I wasn't with another woman. I was... I'm sorry, my lingo just sounds like it's not what it is. I was...
Glad you clarified
I was on a shift that evening with another girl. And I was super into hats, too. I remember I went through a big hat phase, so I would always go and buy these cool hats. I don't know where that came from, but it was... part of the
Are we talking like royal wedding, big fancy hats?
Something. I went to like Macy's and Nordstrom's and just went all hat crazy. Yeah. I don't know where that came from, but it was a phase. So anyway, so Kim and I were Friday and Saturday night hostesses, and like Robert Redford would come in, just all kinds of people. Even George H.W. President Bush came in. And had to have all the Secret Service check out all the entries and kitchen and, stake it out. And I'll never forget, he was past his presidency, but everyone gave him a standing ovation. And Huey Lewis of Huey Lewis and the News was at the bar at the time and got so pissed off that the president got a standing ovation. And he didn't.
No.
So he wanders through the restaurant going, how about me?
Oh
exactly. And everybody was just like, who the hell? What the hell? Like,
how very Huey Lewis.
I know. And we were like, if you sing a
song. Is he a conceited guy, or he's known to be like that?
Yes.
I feel like his personality is the type that he's like, me.
I know. And so we're all like, well, if you sang a song, maybe. But, just we don't know who you are. I mean, we knew who he was. But And then at the time, Van Halen's lead singer, Sammy Hagar, was in a corner booth. And you can't miss him because he had the big blonde curly hair.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's 71 and he still has the blonde hair.
Yeah, and he had the blonde hair, and he had the blonde booth. He had the booth all to himself, and again, he wanted all the attention. He wanders through the restaurant when Bush is having his dinner with Barbara and another couple.
Wow.
And we're all just like, holy crap, what? It was just hilarious.
Settle down, dude.
Well, so Kim and I had to kind of manage all that, which was very fun but challenging, and you had to deal with personalities because it was just packed.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did that for 2 years, and then this is kind of an extension of that story, but one of the bartenders I really had a super crush on, and he became general manager because he was just really good with people. He was good at his job. He started this whole anti-smoking campaign for the restaurant and actually restaurants in general in the area. And we started biking together, and then he became my husband. And then he had to fire me because we couldn't work together.
Wow.
So that was kind of fun, part of it. So then I moved on to other things. But so there you go. So it was a great job because I met him, and we lasted 11 years, and it was wonderful. And until it wasn't wonderful.
Sounds like there's a lot of chapters to that story.
There's so many chapters. But waitressing, we were kind of talking about the service industry before, and when you do it, you have a sense of what did we call it? I can't even remember what we called it. You just have a sense of giving and also awareness of people, service, service. But you're also kind of working for money, it sounds kind of weird, but you are, but there, because, the area was wealthy, I just made great money, and I had all day to have fun until I had to be at work at 5 until 10. It was only like 5.5 hours of work, but you'd walk home with $300 or $400, and it was like, and it was all cash, and I'm not good with cash in my hand. It disappears. I just had to stuff it somewhere. I know. I would
You become that woman who had a stack of cash under her mattress.
Yes, I did. I would roll it up, and I would just okay, I don't see it because I can't have cash in my hands. I'm just
you know what's funny?
It.
That's totally going to become one of those things though, where you do that because you're I don't want to spend it. You roll it up, you stick it someplace safe,
and then you forget where you stuck it.
A year later, you're like, God damn it!
I know.
5 years later, when you're finally moving or deep cleaning, you pull this giant wad of $400 out of the back of some drawer,
and it's you won the lottery or something. But I could not. Have cash in my hand. I was happy to receive it, but not to. I could spend it too much.
Oh, man.
So that was my awesome job, and I loved it. Yeah. And I still think fondly of it because there's so many layers to it that was so much fun.
That's cool. That's cool.
Anyway.
Okay, so I'm Amy. I'm a copywriter.
Oh, I'm Gerry. I forgot to say my name.
Oh, that's okay. So I'm a copywriter and SEO associate. So the job that I'm going to talk about is actually not a job that I had. I got an interview at a publishing company that I'm a big fan of their authors and read a lot of the books that they've published, and it's the self-improvement, self-help genre. So I got the interview. I went to the office and I was this big fan about it, right? I'm looking around, there's posters of all the authors and the books are displayed and they have their radio station there, and and they have tarot cards on the coffee table, and I was just so I had the interview. The people I interviewed with were really nice, but I just got this overall sense that everybody was overworked and really stressed, and it just I didn't know if that was the environment I wanted to be in, even though it felt like it was my dream job. And then the commute would have been a nightmare. I would have never been able to pick my son up from school or anything. And then I read some reviews from people who had worked there, and it was just terrible. Micromanaging and overworked and no room for advancement and all this stuff. So I'm I don't know. I know.
In that industry.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because the people there are so motivated from reading all those books that they just have such a high standard.
Maybe.
You guys have to be as motivated as I am when I just read Wayne Dyer.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the process, they were advancing me in the process. I got my writing test, and the day after I got my writing test, I had an interview for Now Media. So in the process, I got the job here, and it, right when it came down to it, I'm should I finish the writing test and, see, maybe it's not that bad, but this something told me to take the job here, and now I'm here, and I'm happy, so it's good.
Something I've learned is that whenever it's you have to try to convince yourself maybe it's not going to be that bad, turn and walk away, that's not...
It was just that, this may be my dream job. Why do you want it?
But you probably would have just been a little cog in the wheel, not a real...
Right, yeah, it was different. I wouldn't have had a podcast to be on.
That's right, yoga class.
Probably wouldn't be teaching my coworkers yoga, although it seems like it would fit.
Yeah, that's true. They probably
it probably would, but they'd be so stressed out that it would last all
They'd be write a yoga book!
30 seconds before, somebody's trying, in a tree pose on their phone, in the back of the classroom.
Yeah.
But that's good to remember whenever you're interviewing for a job. I think a lot of people do that. I think writers have to go through that at some point. When you're first getting your initial job, you don't have any experience, you need to get things done, so you're interviewing all these different places, you're whoever will take me, I will do it.
That's right.
But you have to remember that they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So don't settle, don't underestimate yourself. You deserve to not live in a hellish environment.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
And I mean, I think
That's
and
a
I
really
think
good point,
too,
Spencer.
You know, when I first moved out here, I was unemployed for almost a year. And part of that was because I had some savings money I was living off of, and I had barreled through college in 3.5 years, and I was burnt out and just done.
Needed a break.
Yeah, and so I was just kind of doing the barista thing and like hanging out, enjoying life and stuff like that. And that was something that I had to like learn, is that there's always going to be another job opportunity. Don't take one just because you feel like you need it, because if your brain or your gut is telling you like, hey, there's something not right about this, you should listen.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think if you're in a dire straits financially, it's not like you settle per se. It's more like you have to start over a little bit.
It's like, yes, I'll take this. Yes,
Yeah,
I'll take this too.
but
Yes,
then
give me this too.
But then it can turn out pretty miraculous, or it
Yeah,
can
it
be kind of
can.
shitty. I mean, I guess.
yeah, I think that's the duality there, is that
Yeah.
if you're in a bad situation financially and you need to work,
Yeah.
get a job and work. Don't not get a job.
That's
It's
right.
not
Yeah,
the perfect thing.
Especially if they offer you a job,
Yeah.
you know, and
If
you're
you
just
need-
like, no, I'm
if
gonna
you
wait
need
for
a
something
job
better.
to survive,
but I'm
yeah.
gonna pay my bills.
work.
Absolutely.
But take that as a starting point to find something you really want to get.
Yeah, that's a
Exactly.
good point.
Well, and I think too,
That's a
something
really good point, Spencer.
something that I learned is when I first moved out here, I was so focused on finding like the job, and at some point, you know, like that said, like Gerry said, you get into that point where it's like, well, shit, somebody has to pay the bills.
Yeah, you just gotta get your foot in the door and do it.
And so it became something where, you know, at some point it became from finding the job to finding a job. And in that sense, you know, it was finding a job that wasn't going to make me miserable, but it didn't necessarily have to be, you know,
Your ultimate.
the ultimate
dream.
big career job leap
Right.
situation.
It could be a stepping stone.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right.
So you feel like you're glad you passed on.
Oh yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know exactly which job you're talking about.
I know.
That commute
Yeah.
would have been a rough ride.
Yeah, I mean,
That
it
would have
could
been
have been
almost an
anywhere.
hour.
From, yeah, it could have been anywhere from like, I think I, looked at the stats on it or whatever, like 35 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes.
Based
Wow.
on traffic.
Both ways, and that's
sounds
like
brutal.
twice a day.
Especially if it was 9 to 5.
And no, it was 10 hours. 4:10.
Oh, 410s is a decent
So,
shift, though.
it
Because you
would've
get
been-
3 days off a week
Well,
where you don't
that's
even
true.
have to wake up
That's
for work.
true.
That is
But then
That's what
4 days
cops
a week,
work,
I
right?
wouldn't see
Is
my
your dad's a
family.
cop?
Like.
Do they do 4
Like a
times?
nurse. You know,
Yeah.
they have,
Cool.
what do they
Police.
call those?
Oh, yeah.
Round the clock shifts?
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
overnight
yeah.
shifts or something.
But you might have been at that new job hosting a yoga class, and in walks Eckhart Tolle, and Deepak
Okay.
Chopra, and then like they're like, oh, my late, sorry, Amy. And he was like Deepak Chopra, Neil deGrasse
like,
Tyson
straight
walks
up
in, like
I know. I'm like, no. What did I do?
I know,
like
we're
all
making
your
you
favorite
convince
authors
you
are
that you
just
made
there
the wrong
waiting.
decision.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. But anyway, I still feel like I made the right decision.
There you go.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm Spencer. I'm a content writer, and I wanted to talk about my first job, and that was when I was 16 years old, and I just had a new neighbor move in the house above me, and it turns out he owned a Little Caesars down the street, and I'm like, I'm a 16-year-old, and I need to like pay my phone bill. So
Yes, that's how it starts.
Yep.
Suddenly your parents don't want to pay for all your testing charges, and they're like,
Yeah.
have fun.
Like, you're 16, aren't you?
so I
It's
went
not
to
child labor.
talk to him, like, hey, can I get a job? And so I interviewed for it. He gave me the job. I worked there for about 4 years. I worked there from about 16 years old to 20. So worked there for a long time, and I got to see a lot of different things there. I'll tell you what. But
Nice.
yeah, from all the way from people coming, homeless people coming in smoking crack in the lobby to I remember like a police chase ending in front of like our restaurant, and like there's police dogs and assault rifles, different thing. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What were your hours there?
I usually work the night shift, so I close the store, so like 2:30 to 10:30.
Nice. So you had all day to do your thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I remember at one time like a guy ran by our front window and smashed it with a rock, and
What?
Yeah.
Holy crap, man.
I mean those are the highlights. It wasn't always that.
Those are
crazy.
the highlights.
Did you ever have to like
Those are the fun
intervene
times.
in chaotic situations.
Break something up.
Yeah, like you hear somebody like a sniper's ready to
sniper.
blow. I mean, he's ready to blow the place up, and you became the negotiator.
Yeah.
You know, like
It was a minimum wage job. If my life was in danger,
It's like it
I'm
was
out.
I was gonna say it's a minimum wage. I'm not getting paid just for this.
I'm not getting shot for this place.
But I also met like some of my lifelong friends there, and I still see them like every week.
that's so cool.
So it was also a really good job, but it was very hectic. But I'm super grateful for it because it taught me how to just get things done when they need to get done. Like I was managing the store at one point, and pizzas are burning in the oven, people are talking in the back, and customers will line out the door, and like, okay, now what am I supposed to do with that?
Damn.
But you just have to like put your head down and just get things done. And sometimes you have to figure out how to do that.
That's a good leadership training
I was
thing.
going to say,
yeah.
and you didn't become manager?
Oh no, I don't want to be manager there.
Okay.
They don't get paid enough, and they have to deal with so much stuff. It's not worth it.
Okay, I was wondering because that would have been something I can see you falling into.
Yeah, I mean, I was like the night manager, but I wasn't like the general manager. But yeah, so I really liked that job. It was really good. I really think that's good for, like you said, your waitressing job, and that it's good to have at least maybe a year or two, even like 6 months of just having a service job, whether you work in retail or in a restaurant or something.
And you learn how to deal with people, their personalities and the characters and what they
knowing
bring to the
people.
table and
Yeah.
everything.
That's right.
I worked
that's
at
right.
a pharmacy in college.
Oh, damn.
That was fun. When people don't get the drugs they need, it can get crazy.
They're like,
Yeah. I've been behind a girl in line at the Albertsons pharmacy, and man's just freaking out, just like, wouldn't let anyone go next, like would not accept
they yell
that she
at the
couldn't get her
pharmacist and
freaking
the
pills.
techs. And
Oh, yes.
So there's real addicts you're dealing with, when
Yeah.
you're pharmacists.
I think the last year and some change I was in college, I worked at the PR firm, but I was also a barista, like this little coffee shop just off campus. And there was the Tempe police station was just around the corner from our coffee shop, and so there were these two detectives, like cops, that would come in every day, and they would order their lattes,
donuts.
No, because we didn't have donuts. But it was funny because you always think of cops as like they're the guys that are like, I want my coffee blacker than my soul.
Right.
But no, these were the cops that walked in and was like, I want a white chocolate mocha extra foam. And you're like, solid,
Right.
okay. And I remember there was a third cop that would sometimes come with them, and I remember, and he would always come with them on certain days, right?
Sure.
So he was always with them on like Monday and Wednesday. One Wednesday he doesn't come in, and then I don't see him the next Monday either. So the next time the detectives come in, I'm like, what happened to the officer? And they're like, oh, he got shot and died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like, that was intense.
Was there anything else with your little Caesar experience that?
No, I think that's about it. I just think that, just learning how to have fun, learning how to work hard, and learning how to deal with different people's personalities, both your coworkers and the customers. Because you're always going to have a customer that's going to be irate, and you have to figure out how you're going to deal with them.
Yeah.
You can't just tell them to go pound sand.
Yeah.
That is something that the service industry is very good for. It's just like teaching you how to like take a deep breath and deal with people.
Just deal with it. I'm curious how it affected your taste for pizzas. I worked two pizza jobs growing up, and the fattest I ever been was working at Howie's Pizza in Silveris, Florida, because every day I would take home a friggin' white calzone, just load it up with like, chicken, all the white cheeses, all this stuff, and I got up to like 215 pounds, and that was the fattest I've ever been, just straight up out of shape fat. And so did you start to hate the pizza, or on the last day were you liking it just as much as day one?
You know what? Like, since I worked there 4 years, I tried like everything you could possibly imagine on pizza.
Every combination,
even stuff like we weren't even supposed to put on pizza. Like feta cheese,
roll it up into a burrito.
Feta cheese on pizza is really good, by the way.
Oh yeah.
But now I honestly just like pepperoni pizza. Now I've had so many complicated things. I'm like, I just want to keep it simple.
Back to the basics.
Go back to the
I
basics.
went the other way. I was the person that my whole life until I was like 19 was like, pizza can't have anything else on it except cheese and tomato sauce. I was the plain cheese person, so whenever we'd order pizza, my parents always had to do like one half whatever they wanted, and then one half plain cheese because I wouldn't eat anything else. And then I remember I went home maybe like my second year in college for like a holiday break or something, and they were like, "Oh, it's Friday, it's pizza night. Do you still want your plain cheese?" And I was like, "Put whatever the hell you want on it." And my parents stared at me for some 5 minutes. They were like, "What did you just say?" I was like, "Yeah."
People get passionate about their pizza
Put
toppings.
whatever you want on it, and I'm like, you know, and now I'm like, I'm all about slap all the veggies, give me some sausage, like do the whole thing. Yes.
Especially like pineapple, people get passionate about. No, you shouldn't have that in your pizza.
I
I like all of it, man. I like all of it. Yeah. So, all right.
All right, well, I have the feature segment this time, and I'm going to talk about Rick Steves,
travel
who
guy.
is a travel writer, which happens to be one of my dream jobs. So you probably know him from his PBS TV series, Rick Steves Europe. But he started out writing guidebooks, through all different locations in Europe. Now he has, a TV show. He has a radio show on public radio. He does audio guides. He does his own guided tours, and he has a travel store in Edmonds, Washington. And I went last time I was in Seattle when my husband was working up there. I went to it, and it's pretty cool. He has his own luggage that he's designed, travel equipment there, and you can go in and have people help you plan your trip. So, yeah, I've been a big fan for a while. I used his guidebooks when we went to London and Paris, and then when we went to Rome for our honeymoon, because we were so focused on the wedding that we didn't really plan the trip other than having plane tickets. So,
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, we were in the airport.
Spontaneity.
On the airport, in the airport on the way to Rome when we booked our hotel, and the rest. I really relied on his
But I feel
Rome
like that's
guidebook.
the way to do it.
Yeah, it was good because we got to jump around and we didn't have anything set, so we weren't stuck in any plans. So
My mom is like the obsessive travel planner. Like she will plan every second of every day down to like the minute.
yeah,
And I'm the kind of person
crazy.
that's like, buy me a plane ticket, I'll figure out the rest when I get there. Like type of person.
Yeah,
It drives my mom batshit crazy.
yeah, I can understand that. So, his travel advice is it's mostly focused on Americans going to Europe. He has really practical, common sense travel tips about packing light, and he really pushes the idea that you can see the main sites, but don't just stick to the busy tourist areas. You need to get out and get to know the people. He says you should become a local, temporary local, do what they do, and experience real life in the area. So his background is that he fell in love with Europe when he went to Norway to visit family as a teenager. He later backpacked across Europe with a buddy. And then he had a background in piano. His father owned a piano store, and he would do piano lessons and eventually did travel classes. So
Wow.
He self-published his first book in 1979 called Europe Through the Back Door. And it led to eventually his TV, radio shows, and all the rest of the stuff that he does now. So now he spends like a third of every year in Europe researching his guidebooks and doing tours. And then, so I just want to read a few quotes that really sum up his travel philosophy. So the first one is, be fanatically positive and militantly optimistic. If something is not to your liking, change your liking.
Wow.
I like that one.
I do too.
And then globetrotting destroys ethnocentricity, helping us understand and appreciate other cultures. Rather than fear the diversity on this planet, celebrate it. Among your most prized souvenirs will be the strands of different cultures you choose to knit into your own character. The world is a cultural yarn shop, and backdoor travelers are weaving the ultimate tapestry.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I think I have two more. Ideally, travel broadens our perspectives personally, culturally, and politically. Suddenly, the palette with which we paint the story of our lives has more colors. And that's from his book, Travel as a Political Act. And that's really good. He talks about his experiences in Europe and how people are afraid of travel because they think it's risky, and there's terrorist attacks and everything. But his idea is that the more you travel, the more people you meet, the more you realize, everybody's just like you, and, stuff like that happens.
Having
But
a human
shouldn't-
experience.
Yeah. Which leads me to my last quote, which is, as a traveler, I've often found that the more a culture differs from my own, the more I am struck by its essential humanity.
Oh, wow. That's
Nice
cool.
quotes.
Yeah, he's great. So
I was just wondering. It's like, I think that's the dude that
Yeah.
zeros at the back door. My family
Yeah.
uses those a lot because he comes out with like updated ones like every year, every 2 years,
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that. We've used them before. We used. Was that when we went to Poland? It might have been, but
oh yeah. So the funny thing is that my son, he's 5.5. He calls them Brick Steves, not Brick Steves.
I love that.
Brick
That's
And
so
he
funny.
loves watching the travel shows because I have
Oh,
a
really?
whole
Like Anthony
DVD
Bourdain and
That
stuff?
kid-
No, Brick
Oh,
Steves.
he has
Yes,
travel
yes.
shows?
I would not let a
Specifically.
child watch Anthony Bourdain.
But yeah, my son will ask to watch
Aw,
Brick
you
Steves.
tell me we'll
Steves.
travel someday. That's
Oh
great.
yeah.
I've always thought that traveling teaches you unlike how anything else can. Like you could read about Spain, but walking through the streets, seeing everything, how the people are different, the laws, the stuff they show, and when you
yeah.
walk
And
into
interact.
a random place and interacting too,
Yeah.
there's no substitute. It's like the difference about reading about playing basketball versus actually being immersed in a game where you're catching, throwing, shooting, and doing
Yeah.
the stuff. And then also one thing I noticed is that if you meet anybody who's a bigot or has super narrow views or super, they're taking all
They
our
don't
jobs,
travel.
that kind of thing. Exactly. They
They've
don't
never
travel.
left like
They've
a
never
10-mile
left their small
radius
town.
of where they grew up.
Because if you travel, you see that, oh, wait, I'm in Japan where nobody is even aware of the religions and stuff that is big in America. And guess what? They're more respectful, successful, and awesome and fun to be around than ever.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I guess all that stuff people told me growing up isn't true at all.
Right.
In some degrees. And so by traveling, you really see that there's so many other ways to live, besides
Right. I
ours.
remember I went to Spain after high school, and it was like complete culture shock because I grew up in like a smaller town in Wisconsin where people don't leave. It's like generation after generation living there, and
Damn.
people get
Were
stuck
you
in
like
their
the black
ways.
sheep because you moved out to San Diego after you were done?
Possibly. I don't know. I only have a couple friends who left the area, but a lot of people that I went to high school with are still there,
Yeah.
and they can't even think of leaving. So
I was just going to say my high school reunion was just happening this past weekend.
Oh,
I
yeah.
won't say what year, but
Yeah.
Doesn't
We don't need to know
many,
that.
many
Doesn't
years.
matter. Yeah.
Did
And-
you go?
no, it was
Fair
in
enough.
Texas. No.
Fair enough.
And it's like
Yeah.
110 degrees here
Oh,
right now.
yeah.
But, I saw the photos, saw everybody there,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone there has never left there.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
One person, I
That's
think,
surreal,
lives in
man.
Northern California. I think one lives in Arizona.
Like
But
a
other than
small
that,
town in Texas? Or
no,
like-
Dallas.
Okay, so big city.
Big
Texas.
city. And they've never left.
Yeah.
And they, and I didn't go, obviously. So I heard, oh, you were missed, oh, you're such a nomad. It's like, well, I
You
have,
left.
because I left
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
traveled, and
Yeah.
I've lived other places, but they
Yeah.
just never left.
That's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And their views are very narrow-minded.
That's
Yeah.
also Texas, though. Like, it's...
It's a red state,
It is a red
but at the
state.
same time, it's just, they can't get past, they
Yeah.
haven't opened up their heart, their world, their life, their adventures.
I understand. It's like those same
Yeah.
boundaries that when you're a child, whether it's church, your parents, whatever, your town, those things you hear, if you never leave, they just apply for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you never
if you
escape
can never
those.
get anything challenged.
Yeah.
Ever.
Exactly.
And so they don't understand bravery, or they don't understand being courageous, being on your own, or doing things that are out of the box.
It's so
Yeah,
funny.
it's interesting.
I make fun of my sister all the time because she turned 25 this past weekend and has never lived anywhere other than like a 10-mile radius within the house that we grew up in our whole lives.
My
And
cousins.
I make fun of her so much for it, and then I look back on it and I'm like, but she's the one who took off and went to Cuba the second they opened the doors and allowed U.S. travelers there last
So
year.
she has an
And
adventurous side now.
she's the one who spent 20 days in Vietnam by herself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did the whole thing.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
That's cool.
maybe she just knows where home is and that's where her heart is, but she clearly
Sure.
has no fear of like going and doing the thing
Sure.
by herself.
It's like I could travel if I wanted to. But.
Yeah, and I mean she does. She takes all the opportunities to, even just within the United States. She came out here to visit me for a few days and she road trips all the way up the coast on the PCH, all the way up to San Francisco.
It's a
for
really
a
nice
wedding,
drive.
and
We
it's
did
just
that
like-
before.
And real
Amazing.
quick, you were
That's what I've
talking
seen.
about the diversity and whatnot. I went to Coronado last night to watch the sunset. It was actually gorgeous. And of course, summertime brings in travelers to
right.
Coronado because it's just a nice.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's really
And the
nice.
people that I saw there were from all countries. I saw this whole family. The women were wearing the burqas, and I mean, it's hot out. But they were so wonderful with their kids, and they were so enamored with just the beach and the hotel and people and everything. And it was like, oh my God, let's welcome all this. It was so wonderful.
You can see the cultural differences too
awesome.
between the way that different cultures travel. Like you'll notice that people from certain countries, they never take pictures. Like it's just not a thing they do.
Well, they were afraid of Scout too.
And
They
people,
don't like
I've
dogs.
noticed that people from Asia take pictures of everything.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
I
just-
was
it's
hearing
like a cultural
languages, just because I had to go to the bathroom, and the bathroom, there's showers there where everybody kind of showers off their sand on their feet. And it's like all the languages I was hearing, and of course, like I said, some were afraid of Scout because they just haven't been exposed to dogs, but it was just so cool. This is kind of like too much information, but I'm sitting on the toilet going, this is so cool. Like all these languages I'm hearing. And
That is
I was
awesome.
so into it.
It's really noticeable living in a diverse area like San Diego versus somewhere like even Japan. It's 99% Japanese. So many times I'd be the only white dude like at the train station. Like
Yeah.
that's it.
It's just nice to have
it's
the
such
culture.
a noticeable difference, that diversity. That is all right. Cool. So
Okay, so moving on to our main
45
topic,
minutes.
which is dream jobs for writers. So we're just going to each talk a little bit about what our dream jobs would be, or any ideas about what our dream job.
Sounds
So,
good.
Tessa, do you want to start?
I think my dream job would be anything that allows me to write and work for myself. And that could be anything from freelancing to, I kind of do that now. I run my own blog and things like that. But on top of that, I think on top of being able to write and work for myself, I would also need some type of, even like a part-time job that got me out and being around people. So even if I were extremely successful writer and didn't need extra income, I would probably still get a job as like a barista or something a few days
I
a
was
week.
just going to say that.
Because, A, I love being a barista. For somebody who's like full-blown addicted to coffee, there's nothing better than getting to go and work in a coffee shop like 4 or 5 hours a day.
And the personalities you meet.
And like when I was in college, the coffee shop I worked at was like super quirky and weird. But the best job perk of the whole damn thing was that while you were on shift and while you were employed there, you could drink as much coffee as you wanted. They did not put a cap on it. So one day, me and my best friend Kiki were working, and we went through like 16 shots of espresso in like 6 hours.
Damn it.
And neither one of us is like, I'm short and she's not much taller. She's like maybe 5'1". We were closing up the shop. We had the music cranked up all the way. Like our boss, like the owner of the coffee shop, Hayes, he walks in and he goes, is this a club or a coffee shop? And we're like vibrating. He's like, oh shit. We're like, we'll see you. And it was like, but it was so much fun. And like we learned, that maybe that's not the wisest choice. Maybe you should stick to like 1 or 2 cups.
And then you don't
like,
sleep
leave it
for
alone.
2 days after that.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
But there's just something so fun about it. Like even if you don't need the money, there's something about being a barista, talking to people, like.
So is that your dream job?
Yeah, maybe that's your dream job. That's a good point. Yeah.
But see, that's just it. Is like it is my dream job in the sense of that, like I love being around the people, and I love actually making coffee, and I love being around the smell of coffee and all of that.
And you can go home and write.
And I love educating people on coffee and things like that. It's something I'm really passionate about. But unfortunately, as a barista, there's no way that you can make the kind of like lifestyle and income that I have aspirations to want for myself, 20 years down the road from now.
Yeah.
So as much as it would be nice to
you
be
own
like
a chain of Starbucks.
yeah, it's like unless I have aspirations to be like the first millionaire barista. Like it's just
good luck with that.
Yeah. So and writing is still such a big passion of mine that I want to combine both. And I think something I learned when I was unemployed for like almost a year when I moved out here and was freelancing is that as much as I love being able to do what I want and dictate my own time, and as much as I'm very okay being introverted and by myself, I can get very, not depressed, but like very down kind of spending way too much time by myself.
Yeah.
And So going out and being around just small groups of people, like you find in little coffee shops, not like packed ones, but
it really matters.
The ones where I can be around 5 or 6 customers that I see all the time, that I know their orders, that I can pick up conversations with them, things like that, was something that, especially in college, when you're dealing with a lot of change and transition, was like super important. And I think it taught me a lot about kind of how far I can push my introverted personality before I become a little cray-cray.
Not good, Spencer.
Would you ever consider opening your own coffee shop one day?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I would totally be that owner, too, that's like, so I'm flying down to Honduras this weekend to find some new coffee beans. I'll be back in a week. Like, there's something, I don't know, coffee tells a story. And it's so connected to the lifestyles and the life of people in different countries.
I think we just found your dream job.
Right,
it's you know, people treat it so differently. Like in America, we use it as just a way to wake ourselves up in the morning. But in countries like Italy or France, it's used as a tradition.
Or Jerry Seinfeld, coffee and cars.
Yeah, it's
a good point. That's right.
It's taken so much differently in other countries, and I love that about it.
I just read on Reddit that Starbucks never caught on Australia because they care too much about high quality coffee. Like they care too much about.
I believe it.
Yeah, so there's only like a handful.
I will say this: I hate Starbucks coffee, but as a company, they are.
Oh yeah, they're taking over like Walmart basically. There's
they're
every
not,
corner.
They're not the worst. They've made some mistakes, don't get me
I've
wrong, but
like them.
They're doing tuition reimbursements. They're letting kids go back to school without them having to be in debt. They're trying to fix the mistakes they have
trying to be
made.
really progressive in a lot of their stances.
You know, I can appreciate that.
It's cool.
But actually, ironically, Starbucks got its name from Moby Dick. That's why their emblem is a mermaid.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Very cool. All right. Okay. So... I'm Nick, and actually, I'm just briefly going to do this section. I'll touch on my 3 dream jobs. So I did try to do my dream job. I got out of the Navy. I just wanted freedom. I didn't want to work anywhere under anyone, and that's pretty common. People get out of a strong desire for freedom. And for me, when I was getting my MBA, admittedly, I was doing all right. I was sitting on 30-something grand in the bank and getting $2,100 a month of the GI Bill. So admittedly, if I was broke, I don't think I would have ventured into freelance writing. But I was in a decent spot, still going to college, so I did. And I worked as a paid freelance writer for 5 or 6 years. The reality of it was... once you're able to make a living at it, it's great. But then, much like Tessa touched on, it's, you might have a great accomplishment, like, oh, I made it into this magazine, I got this new gig, and really, who's around to care? So there's that element, and really there's just a lot of elements where to me it wasn't that fulfilling. But knowing what I know now, it's a phenomenal experience because I could leave any job, and I know I can pay my bills doing that. I'm still in touch with those contacts. And then, all right, so anyway... One dream job that I would do from experience is I wrote before. I did the feature article for Roller Skating Business Magazine, and I've done several other articles for them as well. And there was one where I was in the top picture in there, and it's way more fulfilling than just doing blogs that are somewhere online and stuff like that. So I think a dream job for me would to be a successful magazine writer, because a lot of magazines like The National, they do pay $500 an article, so you can make a pretty good living writing for magazines. Plus, you have something to show for it. And so I think that would be a fun way to do freelancing, is if you're already established to where you could write for, I'm going to write for Time and then Newsweek and then The National and then, maybe Black Belt or another magazine I like. To just be able to do that, I think would be a lot of fun, plus a realistic way to make a living. And then, obviously, it takes a lot to get to that point. And then I also think it'd be cool to write a screenplay for a hit show. I'm a fan of really high-quality shows that make you think, like Mr. Robot, for instance. It's one that we just finished up, my wife and I. And so I think it'd be cool to be like a showrunner or a lead writer on a show, especially one I created. That'd be tons of fun, especially right when it's in its prime. And then third dream job for me would be to have a popular series of novels, like George R.R. Martin, where he recently did a speaking engagement at SDSU where he charged $40 a ticket just for people to ask him questions and for him to talk about what he's been up to. And so he's basically at the top right now as far as being a writer with an active series going on that people are just like, oh my God, when's it coming out? So I think that would be awesome to have some of my novels reach that level of success to where they're in high demand and they're making a show, that'd be pretty phenomenal, I think.
That dude needs to finish the last book before he keels over and dies, or I'm going to be
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
Maybe as a
real
kid
mad.
finished it or something. So like J.R.R. Tolkien, his kid took over afterwards and all that. So that might happen. I don't know.
Not okay. Finish it before you die.
So those are my dream jobs.
Okay, so my dream jobs, my 3. I would love to be a ghostwriter for Michelle Obama's memoir, and I actually read this weekend that she's already written her memoir.
Oh, she has.
It's called Belonging or something like that, or Becoming. But if she wants to do a sequel, I'd be happy to step in.
Tweets at Michelle Obama.
Exactly. A travel writer for National Geographic, and mainly I just love that publication. I think I've loved it since I was a kid. And then Oprah's writer for Super Soul Sunday episodes. I'd like to research, secure the guests. And I think I mentioned that she probably has a major hand in what goes on in the whole production of that. But I'd like to work with her or her team and figure out how the story's going to go. We meet at her Santa Barbara Ranch. We meet in Hawaii. Wherever she wants us to be, we will be.
You'll work around her schedule.
I will work around her schedule. And, so I think those 3 would be my top.
Nice. Yeah, cool. Like I already mentioned, travel writer, for sure, would be one of my top 3. Like I also mentioned, I went to Spain, right after high school. And I would write notes about everywhere we went, not necessarily a journal, but, and I thought, wow, that would be cool if you could travel around and do that. And at the time I didn't realize, some people do stuff like that.
You get paid for
so
it.
Exactly.
Very well.
Yeah. My second one would be just writing something about, books or magazine articles or something about yoga and self-improvement type topics. And I've always wanted to work at the Yoga Journal.
Nice.
I saw that on Amazon. The yoga journal is just $13 for a subscription. I was like, I didn't even know that exists. The yoga
Really?
journal.
Oh yeah, it's in San Francisco. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you move to San Francisco?
That'd be a fun city to live in if you could afford it.
Yeah, I was going for enough money.
You think San Diego is bad?
It's so gentrified there.
Is so crowded. There are so many people.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super expensive.
I can't do it.
That's your dream job. You can afford it.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. That's like, yeah.
There you
dream job
If Yoga Journal gave me a job, I would.
But see, that for
Awesome.
me, that's part of. I think that's part of my stipulation for my
Part of the
dream job
experience.
is that it has to be somewhere I would be okay living.
Yeah.
And
True.
I'm okay living just about anywhere in the world, but there are a few places I would never want to live in Chicago. I love the city, I love visiting it, but if you have to live in the heart of downtown Chicago, it's a beautiful city, but I can't do San Diego is too big of a city.
It's you get it right about fashion, but you have to live in Iraq.
San Diego's getting bigger.
And I didn't, I've progressively been going to bigger and bigger cities. I grew up in Boulder, which is decent size.
Yeah, San Diego is huge.
150,000 people. But it feels very small town. You're always running into the same people. You can never go to the damn grocery store without my mom seeing somebody she knows and starting a 45-minute conversation that was by the time she was done, me and my sister were we want to cook in, we want to go home. We're 5 years old, it was a big deal. And then I moved to Tempe/Phoenix, Arizona, which is pretty big size. And then San Diego, but I think this is about as big as I can handle.
So my last one, and this surprised me that I settled on this one, it's children's book author. Because I end up telling stories to my son all the time. He wants to hear stories, and I just make up things in the moment. And I've got so many ideas from that. I feel I could develop some of them with pictures and more of a story that... Yeah, that's got to be...
Did you ever read Highlights magazine?
No.
Okay.
No, I've heard of it.
My daughter gets that,
That's
the
a
baby
good one.
version where it has stickers and all kinds of little babies on
very
it.
much for children.
My daughter gets
Yeah.
that.
That and National Geographic Kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are good ones
Very
for kids.
educational.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to
Highlights
check
was
that
always
out.
at the dentist's office.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's what I remember. It
Always
from.
sitting on a
was.
little table.
Yeah.
And the doctors and the...
Yeah. Maybe I'll take it back for Neil.
There you go.
Awesome.
Start your own highlights
A
magazine.
yoga journal
Yeah.
subscription and then a highlight subscription.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There we go.
And then start your own.
Yeah.
So they'll probably tell you on a magazine how to, you want to write for yoga, what to do. So
Oh,
Or
yeah.
get that book, The
Yeah.
Writer's
Yeah.
Market. Do you have that book?
Oh, yes.
The
That's a
Writer's
great
Market?
book.
No.
Yeah.
I had that. I had one
I'll
in
look that up.
college, but
Yeah.
it's probably way outdated.
Well, every year they update it.
I know,
Give
yeah.
you all the new
That's what I mean.
agents, publications,
way
trade journals. Yeah, but still, some of them are valid and relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Spencer.
It's funny that my dream stuff is actually not to travel and to go to different places and write different places. Like, I think the dream job for me is like having a short commute.
Yeah.
And be able to work hours that
Makes a
are,
big difference.
I can work early and get off early. Like, if I could start at like 5 a.m., I totally would.
No.
I'd be there too.
Is your
Yeah.
commute here short?
Oh yeah, it's not too bad. It's about 20
Yeah,
minutes.
That's
Okay.
fine.
So it's that, it's within the butter zone there. It's good. But I think if I had a dream job, it'd be fun. I love board games, so I think it'd be fun to work with like some board game companies or maybe some independent people. Work on like the advertisements for them and the rules. And I was actually just at Comic-Con yesterday, and I got to speak with some board game developers, and they weren't like big companies, but there was like just independent people putting out their stuff. And it was funny. There was this one where it was a very simple game, but it was fun. And I was talking to them like, okay, so like, how much are you selling this for? Like, yeah, we're doing this board. You only need these few plastic pieces and this plain mat, and it's $55. And I'm like, okay. Like, a huge part of the cost was they had this like handcrafted wooden box and intricately carved and stuff like that. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you can't. You got to do like plastic and like cardboard parts. So you can sell it for $20, and then no one wants to buy this for $55.
So you want to build these or
maybe a consultant, because I think a lot of people have the dream of like, I want to build my own games and things like that, but they don't see the logistics involved with it. So learning, helping them advertise it, and like telling them like, you need to cut costs here to make a profit.
That'd be fun.
And I also talked to another guy and played a game with him where it was a much more complicated game and it was a lot more fun. And everything was paper and cardboard, and it was like for $40, and it was much more high quality. You're getting way more for substantially less. So
is the writing pretty crucial to a lot of those kind of games? Like those,
Yeah, it is very crucial, because if it's too difficult to understand through writing, people just aren't going to play it.
That's true.
It's not just understanding how to play it; it's understanding it enough so you can explain it to other people.
Yeah.
Because once someone knows the rules, it's like that. It's easy. But I feel like novice players aren't used to playing different games all the time. It's very, very difficult to learn the rules, and I understand that. That's a common thing. Also, I love technology, so I think maybe working for a tech journal would be fun, just writing about different technology and stuff. I think it's easy to stay passionate about those kinds of things, because there's always some new thing around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
So that'd be my dream job things, I think.
Nice.
All right, awesome. Cool. All right, cool, guys. Those are cool responses. So I have a discussion question here, or two. And so do you guys think that the worst boss could ruin the best dream job? Like, say my dream job is have just a beach headquarters overlooking it, or I just get to write magazine articles from wherever I want all the time and all that, but I just have a boss that just hates me, has it out, always trying to micromanage, never positive. My answer is yes. I think the worst boss could ruin literally any job, no matter the experience or the pleasures of that job. I really think having one bad egg could spoil the whole situation.
I totally agree.
I agree.
Yeah,
You guys
unfortunately,
think so?
I mean, it would take a lot of like personal
Discipline.
strength and discipline to block that out and just focus on your work. But yes, I think overall it could.
So I feel like it'd wear on you all the time.
Yeah.
Like you might be getting, say you're getting 6 figures, whatever, but still you have to go home and you're like pissed. Like, how do you get all that out? Like,
and you're processing it all the time.
That's
It's
right.
like you're spending so much energy on that versus other things.
Yeah. So
Creating.
What do you think, Spencer?
I think that's situational. I think that there's times where someone is just such an egomaniac and self-centered that there's really no getting to them. But I think a lot of the time that the hard answer is that you have to work hard and you have to figure out how to build a relationship with that person to change their mind and to make them look good. You want to make them look good because that means they get promoted. And when they get promoted, you'll probably get their job.
Yeah.
And you don't have to deal with them anymore.
I mean, that being
speak.
said, that's a long game, and if you're not willing to put that
Yeah.
time in, and then maybe you should find a different situation. But
That really is the best advice. But do you acknowledge that there's people out there, almost like Tessa's situation, where they just, hate you and are like, oh my God, like maybe they can't even explain it, but where they're just out for you? Because I haven't known anyone like that. Well, yeah, here I guess there was kind of a girl who was pretty condescending to me, but more so in the Navy, I knew people like that who just unanimously they were dicks to everyone. And I guess that kind of thing. Like if you had that kind of person over you, just always micromanaging, even when you did everything right, would you be able to stay in that kind of situation? And I do think there's people that would.
like I said, I think it is situational. Like I've been lucky enough where I haven't had to deal with that. I've always pretty much across the board. I've had fantastic bosses.
Nice.
Always been very supportive. But I know I've heard lots of stories from different people. They've had absolutely nightmare bosses. So I think it's situational and seeing where you're at in your career. If you're just starting out, maybe it would be worth that kind of suffering for a few months or a year.
That's a good point. Yeah, it might be worth it depending where you are in your career.
But if you have 5-10 years of experience, you know your worth, you know how.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm out of here. But
keep doing your job, keep doing what you should be doing, but look for a better situation.
Yeah.
Like, no need to suffer needlessly. So
that's a good perspective, of how to realistically handle that. And then just real quick, going around, one more question. What do you guys think is the number one factor for your dream job? Like the number one thing that has to be on point. For me, I'm going to say fun. Because like if you go to work and you don't mind going to work, that's the biggest boost to your quality of life ever. Because I've had jobs where I dread it. I'm like, oh my God, I got to fucking go to this place. And this job isn't like that for me, and so that's good. So for me, it's fun. What do you guys think? What's the number one factor? It can be money, whatever.
For me, it's freedom.
Freedom.
It's kind of the things that I love to do, the things I'm passionate about, the things I want to turn my career into don't necessarily always mean that I need to be in an office working.
Yeah.
And my personality drives me to kind of try to avoid those things. And it's something where I've kind of realized that I am young and starting my career means devoting some time to an office job for a while until I gain the experience to earn that freedom, which is fine. I have no issue putting in the time, but I think ultimately down the road, there's no reason that I should be forced to go into an office, because I can access what I need to do from anywhere.
Sure.
So,
I think too much structure for me is not good.
Okay.
If I have everything's so structured.
A lot of autonomy then is important to you, where you can do your own thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you have deadlines and if you have to meet certain demands of the job, then yes, do that. But not so structured, I like to kind of have like, all right, I'm just going to
go with the flow.
Go out and do that and then come back and do the job, But you can do it in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I actually do better when I don't have to be somewhere. Yeah. And I mean, like some people say, I can't work remote because I get distracted. Like I work so well remote.
Okay.
I'm a remote person.
Nice.
I think too, I kind of have a similar feeling where it's like, tell me what you need done and give me a date to get it done by, but then don't try to tell me that like there's checkpoints I have to, or like don't be every day, I will update you when things change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. What about you?
And you have your own way of working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think overall for me is kind of just the creative aspect. And I don't mean just necessarily like creative freedom, but just that I'm creating something that is like, helping the whole thing work, I guess. Like, I've tried a sales job, and that's not, like, tangible enough for me. I don't like it. Like, I want to be able to make something, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's like your way of being of service.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Appreciate that.
Sales personalities are very different personalities.
I think the most important thing for me is work-life balance. I want to be able to, when I'm done with work, I want to be able to set that aside, not think about it. I mean, sometimes I'll think about it when I'm not here, but I want to be able to set it aside and think about other parts of my life. I don't want it to be weighing on me and expect to be doing work things while I'm not at work.
Yes.
I want to be able to focus on the things I love doing, family and friends, and then when I'm at work, focus on work. So
I like
that's
that.
what's important to me.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a good realistic one.
The balance is
I like
key.
that. Very cool.
Okay, so we're on to our quotes.
We are.
Ivy, do you want to start now?
Sure, why not? I'll start us out. So this is a book that was pretty influential on me this year, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep. Fuck, yeah. Thank you, Gerry. And,
We're all adults here.
yeah,
It's
we
fine.
are. We are. And it's a counterintuitive approach to living a good life. It's all about making sure you're not entitled, not feeling too special. So I'm going to read a brief part of that about avoidance. So it says, the more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. There's a certain comfort that comes from knowing how you fit into the world. Anything that shakes up that comfort, even if it could potentially make your life better, is inherently scary.
Wow. Who wrote that? Mark Manson?
Mark Manson, yeah, he
I
was a
always think of,
blogger and
Charles
went on
Manson.
to be a best-selling author. He had millions of hits on his blog. So.
Wow. Okay, mine is actually from, well, I'll say his name at the end because you might figure it out. Some people see things that are and ask why. Some people dream of things that never were and ask why not. Some people have to go to work and don't have time for all that. George Carlin.
Nice.
Because I think he's taking from another quote, like some
Yeah.
people see things as they are and say, well,
Yeah.
and he
Oh, yeah,
kind of
for sure.
interjects as like,
He's
fuck
all-
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I gotta go to work.
Get on the nutter butter. Here you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a genius. Got a good kid.
Okay, mine is from Joseph Campbell.
Love.
And it's, if you follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while, waiting for you, and the life that you ought to be living is the one you are living. Wherever you are, if you are following your bliss, you are enjoying that refreshment, that life within you, all the time.
Nice.
I love him because he's all about bliss.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually have two quotes in there. They're from the same book. It's kind of, I'll do them back to back. That they're by Jocko Willink. It goes, but my glory, it doesn't happen in front of a crowd. It doesn't happen in a stadium or on a stage. There are no medals handed out. It happens in the darkness of the early morning, in solitude, where I try and I try with everything I have to be the best I can possibly be. And the second part is don't expect to be motivated every day to get out there and make things happen. You won't be. Don't count on motivation. Count on discipline.
Awesome.
That's from Discipline Equals Freedom. I really found that because I am not motivated every day, and if you try to be motivated, it will let you down. So you have to focus on just getting things done and counting on your self-discipline to do things sometimes.
Nice.
that's true.
Sounds like a cool book and author.
All right, mine's from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it goes, dare to live the life you've dreamed for yourself. Go forward and make your dreams come true.
Very cool, very cool.
And we all talked about dreams.
All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Rogue Riders podcast. Check back every week at nowmediagroup.tv/rogue-riders for new episodes. You can get more from Gerry at 8pawswellness.squarespace.com, more from me at livinglifeboutique.com, and check out some great interviews with Nick on Boo Foods Facebook Live. Thank you to Dirty Rose Productions for our intro and outro music, and have a great week, everyone.